Hello BookTube, and welcome back to my library tour for 2022. We're going through every book, shelf by shelf, so that I have a visual record of what I had at this time, although it's growing and shrinking all the time, so that's kind of useless. And so that you have a look at a whole bunch of books, some of which may intrigue you. You never know. I'm not going into the books in any great detail, but still, I'm always available if you want to email me for more detail. I am starting in my little book room. This is my little Sanctum Sanctorum. It's lined with books on a very old, battered bed, and it's typically the place that I tell myself I come to retreat. But I have set up the whole place as a retreat, so this is an extra special retreat. And the books in here are extra special. The books in here rotate far slower than the ones everywhere else here at Hyde Cottage. So we're going to do the Transverse Books first, starting with a little picture book. This is by Jacopo Fassolo. This is Another Venice. Does not have exclusively photographs. It also has watercolors. So it's an interesting little Venice book, although, as I've pointed out many times before, it should be with all the other Venice books. There should be a shelf of Venice books. Then we have John Markram. This is Stopover Tokyo. This is a Mr. Moto novel. I don't think they will ever be reprinted. But it was such a lovely thing that I couldn't pass it up. Mr. Moto is a detective. So this falls under the heading of March Mystery Madness, which is right around the corner. But again, it doesn't belong here. Or if it does, it belongs with its kindred. Then we have these great big books. These are so good. These are so fantastic. This is the landmark Xenophon's Hellenica. And this is the landmark series, is the oversized hardcovers, and you get tons and tons of notes and apparatus, but also lots and lots of maps, pictures, in order to help you locate great works of classical literature. This is Xenophon's Hellenica, which is just a terrific read, even now after 2,000 years. But to have it done in the landmark series makes it extra special. Same thing with this next one, which we've seen on this channel. This is the landmark Xenophon's Anabasis. Which probably still has all of the paperwork in it from the publisher. Probably it does. Oh no, I don't see it. Maybe I removed it. This is just another work of Xenophon's, the only other work of his that they could really have done. He did a bunch of other stuff, but you wouldn't need maps for it. And this series is ongoing. So who knows if your favorite classical author who roams all around won't have a landmark volume, including this one. This one here is one of my favorite ones. This is the landmark Julius Caesar, and you wouldn't think at first, right? If you just have a thumbnail version of Roman history, you'd think of Julius Caesar in Rome. But Julius Caesar spent a lot of time in the empire, and he wrote about it a lot, or had flunkies write about it. And this is all of his works in new translations with tons of notes and appendices all through this thing. I was astonished when I first got this at how good it was. Julius Caesar as a character tends to annoy me. His writings tend to annoy me. But not only is this a great one-volume translation of all of extant Julius Caesar, but it's also a great book on Caesar. When you take the notes, the introductions, and the appendices together, you get a great volume on this figure. So, these three are together here in the little book room, and I don't know if that means that they're the only ones that I have. Could it be that I don't have the landmark Herodotus? That would be weird that I don't have the landmark Thucydides. I'll have to check and see. The landmark Herodotus, at least, I would want. That's a Herodotus volume to have. Maybe I had it and got rid of it, just counting on the Brattle providing another one. Maybe that's what happened. I'm a little bit suspicious because all three of these are together. Okay, all right. Oh my. All right, then we have Gail Christensen's biography of Isaac Newton, In the Presence of the Creator. Now, I have a whole biography section. So technically this doesn't belong here, but it's an extra special book for me. I mean, it's a great biography, in my opinion, the best biography of Isaac Newton that's ever been done. But it's also special for me because at the time that this came out, 40 years ago, I was a member of something called the History Book Club. And at the time, the History Book Club wasn't quite so co-opted and thin as it seems to me to be in the 21st century. Instead, it was a genuine thing. It was they had all sorts of remainders that were exclusive to them. They had all sorts of great selections. I can't help but think they had an editorial board that was very different from the one they have now. And this was one of their features. I used to get their catalog in the mail, and I would pore over it like a Talmud text. I would just pore over it at the kitchen table. look at all these choices. Which is the right one? How far do I want to go? Do I want to use some of the credits that you used to accrue at the History Book Club? And this was, at the time, I was living with Miss Saint Ma. We were roommates in a gigantic, rambling old house, and that was a gamble on my part and hers as well. And it turned out to be totally well founded. We became each other's friends, which is not a given, right? With your parents when you're older, that is not a given. And it's one of the happiest decisions I ever made in my life. And at one point I was looking through the latest catalog, and she was trundling by, and she said, "Why don't you pick out the one you want the most, and I'll get it for you." Even though she wasn't a big fan of books, as she said, she's saving her eyes. She nevertheless offered to do it, and it was such an amazing thing. She'd never offered to get me a book in her life, that I picked this one. And it came, and I showed it to her, and she said, "Oh, he looks dizzy." And I read it and loved it. I would have kept it for sentimental reasons anyway, even if I didn't love it. But it is actually a great biography, so that was an extra pleasant bonus. Okay, then we have, this is the Old McGraw-Hill. This is edited by Frederick Pottle, and this is the London Journal of James Boswell. I got it in a battered dust jacket hardcover at the Brattle Bookshop and grabbed it because I love the cover art, and I love, this was made in a number of different editions, but this is my favorite one. Pottle went on to mine Boswell's writings to the tune of something like 10 books. Boswell for the Defense, Boswell in Search of a Wife, Boswell this, Boswell that. This is, requires no documentary reconstruction. This is a book that did well and has done well for centuries, and it's Boswell living a dissipated but aspirational life in the stews of London. And it's amazing. It's more gripping and atmospheric than any novel could possibly be on the same period. Parts of it are gross, but parts of it are also amazing and funny. It's a book like this. I mean, Boswell was, of course, immortal for his life of Samuel Johnson, but it's a book like this that reminds us what a great writer he was anyway. What a terrific, totally honest writer he was anyway. Whether he wrote about Johnson or not. This is here, and yet I don't know what kind of Lives of Johnson I have in this room. We're bound to come across them. At least this shelf is not the failure that yesterday's was. Yesterday's still bugging me. Our shelf yesterday had 2 box sets that don't belong on shelves because you can stand them on the floor if you need to. And it had a bunch of books that I either want in different formats or have already in different formats. I could clear off virtually that whole shelf. And should, because the space is at a premium here in the little book room. But anyway, this shelf is not disappointing me as much. Okay, this was another battered hardcover that I got and reinforced it. This is Italian Days by Barbara Kazuti Harrison. This is travel writing, you could call it, but it's travel writing of an almost unparalleled level of excellence. It's all of Italy, and it's every great encounter, every great bit of dialogue that she overheard, great scenery descriptions. It is a fantastic Italy book to have. Italian Days, I think, is probably a rather knowing wink in the direction of Henry James, but this is 10 times better than Henry James's own very similar book on Italy. Okay, then we have an old book. This is from the 1920s. This is a book on Horace by Archibald Campbell. I had to put a piece of tape over this because it was falling apart. I knew I was never going to see this again, and I never have. I got this at the Brattle probably 25 years ago and have never seen a copy again. Campbell was a professor of classics, I think Greek, at Cambridge 100 years ago. And this is a study of Horace's works and also has a lot of biographical reconstruction. A terrific book, and I go back to it often, not as often as Boswell's London Journal is really hypnotic reading. You will keep going back to it. And Italian Days is also really, I go back to those two more than anything we've seen on this shelf so far. But I do still go back to Campbell's Horace. Although, again, my favorite refrain, there should be a shelf of Horace books, or at least a couple of shelves of classical literature here in the little book room. Okay, and then we'll finish with the book that made me a touch more obnoxious than I already am. This is the Norton Critical Edition of the King James Bible, the English Bible. This is the New Testament and Apocrypha, and the Norton Critical Edition is you get the text, and then you get a whole bunch of critical essays in the back. It's a beautiful thing. They did the Old Testament and the New Testament, and those volumes are bottomless. The scholarship that you get in here is just bottomless. Look at this. That is typical for the kind of underpinning that you get on a single page. And that's before you even get to the essays in the back, to the appendices in the back. The 2 volumes of this are absolutely a Bible to have. And the reason that it makes me more obnoxious is because I'm blurbed on it. There's Robert Alter, there's Jack Miles, but there's also me. I am also blurbed on the book, and that's pretty bad. that's pretty bad. To be blurbed on the Bible when you've got an ego as big as mine is already is pretty bad. Somehow you people have still managed to live with me, even though I am blurbed on Genji and the Bible. Really doesn't get better than that. I suppose the life dream would be to be blurbed on the new Meg book, but I'll take it. I'll take these 2. So that's it. That is this shelf, a fairly well-behaved shelf. And the extra bonus, of course, is that I get to be on the floor as opposed to on a step stool, which is great. No idea how we'll arrange the ergonomics of the next shelf. Probably I'll just keep the camera where it is since it's right at chest level. But we shall see. I will wrap this up for now and not push my luck, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.